The first human warship in space wasn't meant to be a warship at all. The U.S. Armstrong, commissioned in 2089, was designed as an exploration vessel. When the Arcturus incident occurred, Captain James Miller ordered the ship's mining lasers repurposed into makeshift weapons. No one expected them to work. They did. Humanity's entry into interstellar warfare happened not with a bang, but with a desperate improvisation that shocked the galaxy. The Arcturus aliens, with their crystalline ships and energy weapons that had terrorized 3 other species, hadn't expected the crude effectiveness of human ingenuity. The Armstrong's mining lasers, never designed to penetrate anything beyond asteroid rock, somehow pierced the alien shields in ways their sophisticated weapons couldn't defend against. Sometimes the simplest solution is the one they least expect. Miller would later write in his memoirs, which became required reading at the Solar Military Academy. Within 5 years, humanity had retrofitted every vessel in its modest fleet. Within 10, the first purpose-built warships left Earth's orbital shipyards. The Phoenix-class destroyers featured what engineers called brute force technology, relatively simple systems that prioritized raw power over elegance. Alien civilizations, many with spacefaring histories spanning millennia, watched in alarm as humans advanced from laser-equipped mining ships to dedicated war vessels in a single generation. What took other species centuries took humanity decades. By 2120, the UES Thunderchild demonstrated humanity's signature approach: overwhelming firepower combined with redundant systems. While alien vessels relied on shields and maneuverability, human ships were built like floating fortresses with layers of defense. The philosophy was simple: even if damaged, a human ship could still fight. The Nelson-class battleships that followed introduced the concept that would become humanity's trademark: the mass driver. While other species developed increasingly sophisticated energy weapons, humans perfected the art of accelerating physical projectiles to relativistic speeds. The earliest models could accelerate a 10-ton tungsten rod to 0.15 km, delivering kinetic energy equivalent to a small nuclear explosion with no radiation and no warning. "They call our weapons primitive," Admiral Elena Vostok famously remarked after the Battle of Proxima Centauri. "They stopped calling them primitive after they've seen what they can do." By the mid-22nd century, humanity had established itself as a force to be reckoned with. The feared dreadnought-class carriers could deploy swarms of automated fighter craft armed with scaled-down mass drivers. The Valkyrie-class cruisers combined kinetic weaponry with disruptive electronic warfare capabilities that could render enemy targeting systems useless. Yet it was the development of the Excalibur-class battleships that truly established humanity's reputation. These massive vessels featured spinal-mounted mass drivers capable of accelerating projectiles to 0.3 c, fast enough that even light-based defensive systems had mere microseconds to react. The first demonstration of an Excalibur-class ship reducing an asteroid larger than Manhattan to rubble was broadcast throughout known space. Humanity had gone from space-faring novices to martial innovators in less than a century. As Ambassador Thomas Rice put it to the Galactic Council, "We didn't invent space warfare. We just perfected it." Long before the first human warship ever left Earth's gravity well, the seeds of space weaponry were planted during the Cold War of the 20th century. Both the United States and Soviet Union developed anti-satellite capabilities, including the Soviet A satellite interceptor and the American ASM-100 and 35 ASAT missile test that destroyed the Solwind P-78-1 satellite in 1985. Project Thor, colloquially known as Rods from God, was conceptualized in the 1950s. The weapon system would orbit tungsten rods that could be dropped from space, reaching tremendous velocities through gravity alone. Upon impact, these rods would create explosions comparable to nuclear weapons, but without radiation. Though never deployed due to technical limitations and astronomical costs, the concept would later inspire humanity's mass drivers. The Strategic Defense Initiative of the 1980s, nicknamed Star Wars, proposed space-based laser systems to intercept incoming nuclear missiles. While technical challenges prevented full implementation, the research laid groundwork for later military space technologies. By the mid-21st century, after the resource wars of the 2040s, the first true military satellites were deployed. These weren't simple spy platforms or communication relays, but active defensive systems equipped with limited point defense lasers designed to protect vital orbital infrastructure. The Chinese orbital defense grid of 2058 represented the first comprehensive militarization of near-Earth space, featuring networked satellites capable of tracking and potentially disabling unauthorized spacecraft. This prompted the formation of the United Earth Space Force in 2060, consolidating the space branches of major terrestrial militaries. When the First Contact War erupted in 2078 with the arrival of the Arcturus fleet, humanity was woefully unprepared. The aliens' directed energy weapons disabled most of Earth's satellite defenses within hours. Only the desperate conversion of civilian mining vessels into improvised warships saved humanity from subjugation. "The aliens expected us to fight by their rules," wrote General Michael O'Connell. "Their mistake was assuming we knew what those rules were." Following the war, the Artemis Accords of 2085 established the framework for human military expansion into space. The first defense platforms orbiting Mars in 2091 featured electromagnetic railguns based on technologies developed nearly a century earlier but refined to unprecedented levels of efficiency. The Titan shipyards, established in Saturn's orbit in 2097, became the birthplace of humanity's dedicated war fleet. Here, engineers unbound by terrestrial limitations constructed vessels that would have been impossible to build on Earth. When the Centauri conflict began in 2115, humanity deployed its first true battleships. The UES Leviathan, lead ship of its class, utilized a revolutionary magnetic acceleration system that could launch projectiles with enough force to shatter asteroids. The alien fleet, expecting energy weapons, was unprepared for kinetic impacts that bypassed their sophisticated shields. By 2130, humanity's military doctrine had solidified around principles that seemed primitive to other spacefaring races, but proved devastatingly effective. Overwhelming firepower, redundant systems, and kinetic weapons that were virtually impossible to detect before impact. As Admiral Jackson noted in his address to the graduating class of the Solar Military Academy in 2142, "Our ancestors threw rocks at their enemies. We just throw them faster and from higher ground. Some principles of warfare never change. We've just perfected the execution." By the late 22nd century, humanity's approach to space warfare had evolved beyond simple kinetic weapons. The Prometheus-class battleships introduced in 2178 featured gravitational distortion arrays, technology reverse-engineered from captured alien vessels that could warp space-time itself into a weapon. The distinction between advanced technology and magic becomes meaningless at this point, noted Dr. Rebecca Hayes, lead scientist on the Prometheus project. "We're not just throwing rocks anymore. We're bending reality." The gravitational weapons could create localized distortions that would tear enemy vessels apart from within, bypassing shields and armor entirely. Other species called it barbaric. Humans called it effective. Meanwhile, the Phantom-class stealth cruisers represented another uniquely human approach to warfare. Rather than relying solely on active defenses, these vessels utilized metamaterials that absorbed both electromagnetic and gravitational scanning. To alien sensors, they simply didn't exist until they opened fire. Commander Alex Foster's famous Ghost Fleet tactic during the Orion Offensive demonstrated the devastating potential of these vessels. 8 Phantom-class ships destroyed an enemy fleet 4 times their size without ever being detected. The psychological impact of being attacked by an invisible enemy caused several alien species to pursue immediate peace negotiations. By 2200, humanity had developed the Singularity Lance, a weapon that created a momentary artificial black hole at the target location. Though the black hole would evaporate in microseconds, nothing caught within its event horizon could escape. Testing on Jupiter's moon Callisto left a perfectly spherical crater 20 kilometers wide. The diplomatic consequences were immediate. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, and for the first time, non-human species began to openly discuss containment protocols for humanity. They fear us not because we are inherently violent, Ambassador William Davis explained to Earth's united government, but because we are inherently unpredictable. Other species developed space warfare following predictable patterns over thousands of years. We compressed that development into centuries, and we took paths no one else considered. The Ascension-class dreadnoughts, unveiled in 2215, represented the pinnacle of human military engineering. Each vessel was effectively a mobile fortress, equipped with multiple weapon systems ranging from conventional mass drivers to exotic matter projectors that could temporarily alter the fundamental constants of physics within a localized area. The deployment of quantum entanglement communication arrays allowed human fleets to coordinate instantaneously across vast distances, bypassing the light speed limitations that constrained other species' command structures. In battle simulations, this advantage alone increased combat effectiveness by over 300%. By 2230, humanity's military dominance had become so complete that direct confrontations became increasingly rare. Instead, humanity assumed the role of galactic peacekeepers, a position that generated both gratitude and resentment among older spacefaring civilizations. As Admiral Roberts observed during the commissioning of the UES Guardian, we didn't set out to rule the stars. We simply refused to be ruled by them. The weapons we've created aren't just tools of destruction. They're symbols of humanity's fundamental refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. By the mid-23rd century, humanity's military dominance in space had created a complex ethical dilemma. The Galactic Council, initially formed as a mutual defense pact against humanity, had evolved into a governing body in which humans held significant influence. The question that dominated council sessions was simple but profound: who watches the watchman? The Nelson Convention of 2255 attempted to establish the first interspecies laws of space warfare. Human delegates, led by the brilliant legal mind of Ambassador Robert Chen, pushed for restrictions on planet-killing weapons while carefully preserving humanity's advantages in conventional space combat. "We seek not dominance, but security," Chen stated in his opening address. However, we recognize that from the perspective of other species, the distinction may appear meaningless. The ethical debates intensified after the Proxima incident, where a rogue human commander deployed a singularity lance against a civilian station. Though the commander was promptly court-martialed and executed by human authorities, the incident highlighted the devastating potential of human weapons in irresponsible hands. The Non-Proliferation Treaty of 2267 prohibited the sharing of advanced human military technology with other species. Ironically, it was the alien representatives who most strongly supported this measure, fearing what their own radicals might do with such capabilities. "The weapons themselves aren't evil," argued Captain Maria Rodriguez during her testimony before the Earth Senate, "but they require a level of restraint that comes from our unique historical perspective. We developed these technologies while staring into the abyss of our own extinction. That context matters." The philosophical question of humanity's role as both peacekeeper and potential oppressor dominated academic discourse. Professor Thomas Williams' influential book, The Burden of Power, became required reading at both military academies and diplomatic corps training centers. "Humanity faces a challenge unique in our history," Williams wrote. "We have become the most feared species in known space, not because we are inherently more violent, but because we are more innovative in our violence. This places upon us a moral obligation to exercise restraint that matches our capacity for destruction." The establishment of the Interspecies Oversight Committee in 2278 represented the first meaningful check on human military power. The committee, composed equally of human and non-human members, had authority to investigate alleged violations of space warfare conventions. Some human military leaders chafed at these restrictions. Admiral Jessica Barnes famously remarked, "We didn't fight our way to the top of the galactic food chain to be bound by the insecurities of species that would have happily watched us perish." Yet most of humanity recognized the wisdom in self-imposed limitations. The Alternative Security Doctrine, developed in 2285, emphasized defensive technologies and deterrence rather than offensive capabilities. The new Sentinel-class vessels were designed primarily to protect civilian infrastructure while maintaining just enough offensive capability to discourage aggression. Perhaps the most advanced weapon isn't the one that causes the most destruction, mused General David Martinez at the dedication of the Earth defense grid, but the one that prevents destruction from becoming necessary in the first place. As the century drew to a close, humanity found itself in the uncomfortable position of galactic superpower, respected, feared, and watching its every move scrutinized across thousands of worlds. The first warning came in 2297, when deep space monitoring stations detected an anomaly at the edge of charted space. Initial analysis suggested a natural phenomenon, perhaps a rogue black hole or neutron star. Within weeks, the truth became clear. Something was approaching, and it was moving with purpose. The object, designated Harbinger by human authorities, defied conventional analysis. It appeared to bend light around itself, making direct observation nearly impossible. Its velocity suggested propulsion technology far beyond anything known to the Galactic Council races. "We are no longer the apex predator," Admiral John Walker announced to the combined fleet commanders. "For the first time since we reached the stars, we face a technological superior." When Harbinger reached the outer colonies, humanity's vaunted weapons proved shockingly ineffective. Mass drivers passed harmlessly through what appeared to be phase-shifted matter. Gravitational weapons were somehow reflected back upon their sources. The Singularity Lance, humanity's ultimate weapon, was absorbed without effect. The colony on Europa Vitae, population 6 million, was simply gone. No debris, no radiation signature, nothing to suggest it had ever existed except for the orbital patterns of nearby moons adjusting to its sudden absence. "We built our reputation on being the monsters no one wanted to fight," General Lisa Reynolds told the emergency session of Earth's United Government. "Now we face the monster that makes us look like children throwing tantrums." For the first time in over a century, humanity was forced to retreat. The outer colonies were evacuated in what became known as the Great Withdrawal. Billions of humans and their alien allies crowded into the inner solar systems of core worlds. In a historic address to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Michael Davis made an unprecedented request. "Humanity asks for the assistance of all spacefaring species. The threat we face is not to human dominance, but to sentient life itself." The response was immediate and surprising. Species that had feared humanity for generations now rallied to the common defense. Alien technologies were integrated with human systems, creating hybrid vessels that combined the best aspects of different approaches to space warfare. The Covenant-class alliance ships, designed collaboratively by engineers from 7 species, represented a new philosophy in space combat: adaptive defense. Rather than overwhelming force or impenetrable armor, these vessels could rapidly reconfigure themselves to counter specific threats. "We spent centuries perfecting the art of breaking things," noted Dr. Emily Winters, lead designer on the Covenant project. "Now we must perfect the art of adapting faster than we can be broken." When Harbinger reached the defense line at Ta City, the Allied fleet was waiting. The battle lasted 6 days. Millions died, but for the first time, Harbinger was forced to retreat. Analysis of the battle data revealed the uncomfortable truth. The entity known as Harbinger displayed signs of intelligence and learning. Each engagement made it more effective against alliance tactics. Victory, if possible at all, would require something beyond conventional warfare. Commander Thomas Reed proposed what came to be known as the Lazarus Protocol, a desperate plan to sacrifice the legendary Excalibur battleships as delivery systems for a payload of experimental technology that existed in theoretical physics. Sometimes, Reed told the Allied command, "The only way to defeat a superior enemy is to change the rules of existence itself." The Lazarus Protocol was humanity's most guarded secret, a theoretical weapon so dangerous that its mere existence had been compartmentalized across 5 separate research facilities. Not even the Galactic Council knew of its development. "It's not a weapon in any conventional sense," explained Dr. Marcus Stone to the Joint Chiefs. "It's more accurate to call it an ontological disruption device. In layman's terms, the device could temporarily suspend the laws of physics within a defined area of space-time. Matter, energy, even the fundamental forces themselves would cease to function according to normal parameters." The theoretical implications were staggering. The practical applications were terrifying. "We're not just talking about destroying an enemy," Admiral Laura Hayes warned. "We're talking about unmaking reality itself in a localized area." The ethical implications alone. But faced with Harbinger's relentless advance, ethical concerns took a back seat to survival. Operation Firebreak was approved with a single dissenting vote. The plan required precision beyond anything attempted in military history. 3 Excalibur-class battleships, the Avalon, the Pendragon, and the Galahad, would execute synchronized jumps to surround Harbinger, their spinal mass drivers modified to deliver the ontological disruptors instead of conventional projectiles. Captain Richard Torres of the Avalon addressed his crew the night before deployment. "Tomorrow we attempt what many consider impossible. If we succeed, no one will ever know the full extent of what we accomplished. If we fail, there may be no one left to remember us at all. Either way, we do our duty." The modified battleships departed from Luna shipyards under complete communications blackout. For 72 hours, the combined fleets of the Alliance engaged Harbinger in a holding action, sacrificing ships and lives to keep the entity contained within a predictable area of space. When the Excalibur ships arrived, Harbinger immediately recognized the threat. It abandoned its methodical approach and launched a frenzied attack against the newcomers. The Galahad was destroyed before it could fire. The Pendragon managed to launch its payload before succumbing to critical damage. The Avalon, commanded by Torres, executed a desperate maneuver. With its engines overloading and hull integrity failing, it accelerated directly toward Harbinger, triggering its ontological disruptor at point-blank range. The effect defied description. Observers reported a sphere of nothing, not darkness, not emptiness, but the absence of reality itself, expanding to engulf both Harbinger and the Avalon. When the disruption field collapsed, neither remained. For 3 days, Alliance forces maintained position, weapons ready. Scientific vessels recorded unprecedented readings across the electromagnetic spectrum. Then, silence. Harbinger did not return. The cost had been astronomical. Millions dead, dozens of ships lost, and 3 legendary vessels sacrificed. Yet humanity and its allies had prevailed against what had seemed an invincible foe. In the aftermath, humanity's position in galactic politics shifted dramatically. The species that had been feared for its martial prowess was now respected for its sacrifice. The humans who had once been seen as potential conquerors were recognized as defenders. Admiral Jackson's address to the combined fleet became famous throughout known space. "We built our reputation on creating the deadliest ships in the galaxy. Today we have earned a greater honor. We created the ships that saved it." The Harbinger incident, as it came to be known, marked a turning point in interspecies relations. The technological exchange that had been necessary for victory continued in peacetime. Human innovation combined with alien wisdom produced a renaissance in space technology. The monument erected at the site of the final battle bore a simple inscription in every known language. "They changed the rules to save us all." 50 years after the Harbinger incident, humanity's approach to space had fundamentally changed. The massive warships that had once been the pride of human space forces had largely been decommissioned, replaced by the collaborative Guardian-class vessels, smaller, more versatile ships designed with input from a dozen species. We learned that the deadliest ship isn't necessarily the one with the biggest guns. Admiral Kate Wilson explained during the commissioning of the UES Harmony. It's the one that can adapt to any threat and coordinate perfectly with its allies. The Galactic Defense Pact of 2355 formalized the alliance that had formed during the crisis. For the first time in known history, the major spacefaring species had united not just in response to a threat, but with a vision for collective security. The technological breakthroughs that emerged from the conflict transformed civilian life as well. The phase shift technology adapted from studying harbingers remains revolutionized energy production. The gravitational manipulation systems developed for warships now powered interstellar transportation networks that connected the farthest reaches of known space. On the centennial of the First Contact War, the Arcturus Ambassador, representing the species that had once been humanity's first extraterrestrial enemy, addressed the United Earth government. "We came to your world as conquerors and found warriors who humbled us. You ventured to the stars as warriors and became the guardians of us all." The Arcturus speech marked the official dedication of the Museum of Space Warfare on Luna, where the preserved bridge of the original U.S. Armstrong stood as a testament to how far humanity had come. Meanwhile, in the deep reaches of uncharted space, exploration vessels continued the search for Harbinger's origins. The entity's appearance and subsequent defeat had raised uncomfortable questions about what else might exist beyond known space. The Sentinel Network, a series of early warning outposts, extended farther each year, pushing back the darkness. "We don't know if Harbinger was unique or merely the first," noted Dr. James Martinez, lead xenobiologist on the Origins Project. "But we know now that the universe is larger and stranger than we imagined. Our deadliest ships are no longer weapons of war, but vessels of discovery." The legacy of humanity's military innovation lived on in unexpected ways. The precision engineering developed for mass drivers now powered surgical instruments that saved millions of lives across 100 worlds. The gravitational manipulation technology, originally designed to tear enemy ships apart, now gently moved asteroids into mining positions without environmental damage. Captain Anna Lee of the exploration vessel Curiosity perhaps best captured humanity's transformed perspective in her ship's log. "Our ancestors looked to the stars and saw battlefields to conquer. We look to the same stars and see mysteries to understand." Both approaches required ships that could accomplish the impossible. The difference is in what we consider impossible today. On Earth, the Space Academy that had once trained generations of warriors now produced equal numbers of diplomats, scientists, and explorers. The simulator chambers where cadets had once practiced ship-to-ship combat now ran terraforming scenarios and first contact protocols. Yet humanity never forgot the lessons of its martial past. Hidden deep within Earth's moon, the Omega facility maintained a small fleet of advanced warships, vessels incorporating every technological breakthrough of the past century, ready to defend civilization should another Harbinger appear. As Admiral Thomas Clark told each graduating class of the Academy, "The most important lesson in our history isn't that we built the deadliest ships in the galaxy. It's that when the moment came, we chose to use them not for conquest, but for protection." That choice, more than any weapon or shield, defines humanity's place among the stars. Across the vast reaches of known space, on worlds circling distant suns, countless beings looked up at their night skies with a complex mixture of emotions when they spotted the distinctive silhouettes of human vessels. Fear remained, respect had been earned, but now something new had been added to that emotional equation: gratitude. Humanity's deadliest ships had indeed blown minds by becoming something their designers could never have imagined. Instruments of peace in a universe that had taught us the true meaning of war.